Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jump Up Supercast, the only podcast on the internet where everyone's feeling just a little bit more spooky this week. I'm your host, Mr. Will, and joining me today, Mr. Brandon.
Sup? I'm bringing it back, by the way. Bringing that thing back.
Mr. Noah.
What? No.
And Mr. Seth.
Good day, Mr. Will.
How you doing, boys?
Doing fine.
I'm pretty good.
Exceptionally exquisite, Mr. William.
Wow, we're a high class this podcast.
I'm not, clearly.
That's fine, you're sup. You connect to the youth, Brandon.
I brought back the famous catchphrase made famous by Saf here himself. Mr. Saf, sorry.
Mr. Saf, the beloved individual. Let me tell you something. This week, a kid came up to me at work. I work at a school. And he was watching something on his computer, and I walked over, and he turns around and he goes, "Mr. Will." I go, "What's up?" And he goes, "Why is anime so sexual all the time?" And I looked at the child and I said, "I can't tell you the answer to that one, brother." And that's a true story. That's a 100% factual thing. Like, we just had this moment where we both looked each other in the eye and we shared in the mutual understanding, why does anime always have to be so sexual? We don't have the answers.
And then he grew into a teenage boy, and then he understood why.
Well,
No.
I would suggest to him, child, you should read or watch Hunter x Hunter, because it is not a sexual thing. It's very wholesome.
Uh-huh. I asked them what they Googled. They said they Googled shrimp anime, and I don't know why. They didn't have a reasoning. Middle schoolers are weird.
I'm going to Google that right now.
Go for it, brother. But you know what? I mean, the reason that we're being a little loosey-goosey here on the start of this podcast, it's been a loosey-goosey week. Things have been wild in the world of video games. Just, not a lot of stuff's happened, but there's a lot of rumors out and about. And we got ourselves a big leak. A big, some might say, leaky cauldron.
Oh, we should call a plumber.
We should call a plumber. A Mario game didn't leak. That's not what happened. That's not what we're alluding to. But a Harry Potter game did leak, which is weird. First things first, let's get a read. Do any of us care about Harry Potter?
No.
I do.
Saf does.
No.
He is from the United Kingdom. It's the law. He has to care about Harry Potter. It's the one cultural export they've had in the last 50 years. They have to like it.
Well, to be more frank, I have a relative that loves Harry Potter. And they love it so much that I end up watching it like at least 3 times, the movies. And I've watched the Fantastic
That's a lot of Harry Potter.
Yeah.
And the Word of
And I'm super excited now for the next the next movie. So I'm totally into this.
Oh no, he was converted.
That is my origin story.
I remember, flashback to reality, and by that I mean last Tuesday. I wake up, see Harry Potter game got leaked. I thought, oh, it'll be like something. It'll be like, a trademark or something happened. Someone did whatever. I go, there's a minute and a half of some guy on his phone recording a computer screen with the full trailer. There is gameplay. There is multiple environments. This appears to be most of the trailer for this game.
Yeah.
That is crazy. We very rarely get leaks like this anymore, where it's just like, it's not 5 seconds or like a weird like mistake where someone updated a website at the wrong time. It's just the whole thing.
I guess people just didn't really care if it got out or not.
Well, I mean, we can talk about that.
Yeah.
Like, apparently it got out by, what was the name? Let me get the name. This is important. By a Reddit user. Oh boy. It was like Vape Me Bro, I think was the name of the Reddit user.
Yeah,
So, industry insider Vape Me Bro had the big leaks. Muzamil wishes he had the insider connections that Vape Me Bro has. But the reports about it, though, are that it is being done by Avalanche Studios, which is not to be confused with the other Avalanche Studios. There are 2 of them. Okay, the one that's not making this game did Just Cause and a bunch of other stuff. Can you guess at all? Have you ever heard of the other Avalanche Studios at all? Could you guess? They made 7 games in the last 10 years.
Uh-oh.
Oh.
Yeah, they've been prolific.
What games were they?
I want to see if you can guess any of them. It's fine. They did. You remember Disney Infinity?
Yes.
Oh.
They did all those games. They did 1, 2, and 3. They did Cars 2, the video game. They did Bolt, if you remember that movie where John Travolta voices a dog. They did for that game, and they did Cars 3, which is a weird thing because they got closed by Disney when Disney said we're closing Disney Interactive. We're not making Disney Infinity anymore. Warner Brothers bought them, and they made Cars 3 under Warner Brothers while still having the rights to make a Cars game. So a Disney Pixar film's game was published by Warner Brothers, which is just a weird little side note in history.
That's very odd.
Yeah. But
this makes me worry a little bit for that Harry Potter game.
That's what I was going to say. This does not scream. If you look at that trailer, it seems like a big budget AAA game. It's looking high tech. The graphics are shiny.
It looks pretty good.
Yeah.
Was like, I don't care about Harry Potter, and I certainly don't care about this game because it's Harry Potter, but it was giving me Fable vibes, kind of, in the gameplay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I guess I'll mention now sort of the scenario of this game, because if we're going to talk about it. So it's set in the 1800s, so fully removed from the main story of Harry Potter. You don't need any Harry Potter knowledge. You're in Hogwarts, that seems to be the most of it. You're like a 5th year, so you're like 17. There's a character creator. That's in the trailer.
That's kind of neat.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Oh, yeah, I did see that,
actually. Yeah, I like that. Like, it's still in the universe of the series, but not necessarily glued to, like, the main characters. It makes its own thing. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And there's apparently going to be, from leaked marketing materials, 8 different RPG classes. So there's going to be RPG elements. Who knows? And there will be choices that matter. So, can we romance a kid in Hogwarts? We'll find out.
Well, this is sounding a lot like Fable, even the more you explain it.
Yeah. And that's the weird thing, right? Is it like, and I was shocked in the trailer, there's blood, right? Like you kill a troll and like a bunch of shrapnel flies off and you see blood splurt everywhere. And you're like, oh, wow. They might even put a swear word in this game. This is for the big boys. Wow.
Yeah. Some wizard's going to say, what the heck are you doing?
Oh boy. We got to put an E on this podcast. But yeah, so like, having all that been said, to go back to Avalanche Studios, looking at that pedigree, that was a surprise to me. Because originally, it was rumored this was Rocksteady. And I was like, that makes sense. But also, weren't they making a Superman game? But I don't know. But then, no, actually, it's Avalanche. Does the pedigree of the other games they've been making give you pause? A little bit.
A little.
I don't care.
Don't care. I get that.
I think Disney Infinity was actually pretty good, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's the weird thing. Yeah, I don't. There's a lot to just unpack here. The one thing I want to get to, though, is that this is, I think we can now say with this Harry Potter game existing, that there is a larger trend at play right now in AAA video games in the West, specifically. But even in Japan, because right now we have EA. They got their big deal with Star Wars, right, a couple of years ago. Criterion, a studio that's made tons of Burnout games, made some Need for Speed games, now is working on the Battlefront games. They make the vehicles in that game. They get Amy Hennig, a lady who made the Uncharted, worked on The Last of Us. They get her, they put her on a Star Wars game. DICE, every other year now, they can't make any other games that do not have battle in the title. It's Battlefront, Battlefield, alternating every year. Square Enix gets the deal with Marvel. Suddenly, the teams that are making Tomb Raider and Deus Ex are now being put on Avengers and Guardians of the Galaxy games. Now we have Warner Brothers taking this game, the studio that did already make licensed games, so it's not as strange here. But, putting a lot of money behind this Harry Potter game, clearly. And then, just very recently, Insomniac, a studio that's well known for tons, over a dozen games at this point, is now probably going to be a Spider-Man factory for the foreseeable future, right? And so I guess my question is, do you like this trend of AAA licensed games? Do you wish that these studios were able to work on more original IPs rather than that? Or do you think that the appeal of having these big budget games about series that people care about is worth the trade-off?
It's the different case scenario, because it isn't like, didn't Insomniac choose Spider-Man because like the guy was a huge fan of Spider-Man, but the other ones were just kind of like,
it was a mutual agreement thing, right? But like, you know, the head of Marvel Games said, like, this is our Iron Man. Like, Iron Man 1 launched the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Spider-Man's going to launch the Marvel Games brand. Like, that's how we're now viewing it in a different light because of how Spider-Man's doing.
Yeah.
Well,
So, I mean,
you know,
I think the context matters a lot in this situation. Because if this is just Warner Bros. Saying, yo, do Harry Potter, do whatever the fuck you want with Harry Potter, then it might come out differently than what would be expected. But if these are people who genuinely enjoy that franchise, that series, and they want to do something different with it, like divorce from like the actual story and try and make something more meaningful out of it, then I'm kind of excited for that. I'm genuinely like excited to explore the fucking Hogwarts castle.
Yeah.
But
Because, like, I mean, I feel like I'm a little bit of a sad sack, but, like, I played Spider-Man, right?
mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
Spider-Man, the parts where you're playing Spider-Man are really fun. Like, oh, this is the best game where I feel like I'm Spider-Man. But, like, if the open world itself, the things I was doing in it were very sort of broad open world design, right? Like, outside of the movement and, like, the combat, which, I mean, is a lot of the game. But, like, you know, like, in terms of collecting the backpacks, in terms of, like, the mission structure, it was very much just, like, a pretty basic implementation of an open world in my mind. And I think that's, like, my only worry with things like this is that, like, you know, Spider-Man, I mean, not Spider-Man, but, like, the Hogwarts game. Like we said, it sounds a lot like Fable, but, like, the thing that Fable had was it had a lot of other stuff going on. And I worry that by trying to spend so much time trying to get the IP right, they don't have enough time to try weird new gameplay things out, if that makes any sense.
yeah.
What you mean, like, make sure that the world is accurate to the way it is portrayed in the fucking movies and the books? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, I mean, just sort of like they're focusing so much on being loyal that, like, sometimes the game design itself, outside of, like, the loyalty aspect to the brand, can sometimes doesn't get as much focus.
Yeah, I'm the exact opposite. I'm kind of hoping that they do that. Like, that's what made the open world enjoyable for me in Spider-Man. Like, going around the city, finding out, like, those different places, like the Avengers Towers or, like, the Sanctum Sanctorum, shit like that. So, that, if they do something like that for Harry Potter, I'm totally in it. I would love to explore that sort of area to its fullest extent. Like, that's what's the most exciting part for me for this type of game.
Yeah. I guess my hope would be, though, that, like, with these games, because, like, obviously you like it because you're into Harry Potter, but, like, Brandon and Noah are not. So, like, if the Harry Potter game was able to stand on its own, removed from being a Harry Potter game, right? Like, I think like the Batman Arkham games are games that, removed from being Batman, are just fun games to play on sort of a more basic level. And I think that, like, aspiring to that is sort of what I would hope for these games. But, like, you know, we were expecting to see that. Sorry, Brandon, go ahead.
I want to talk about licensed games in general, and like, because for me, I grew up in an era where licensed games 9 times out of 10 were god awful.
Yes, I was going to talk about that.
Yeah, because they were given little to no development time, and they were constantly rushed out to hit, you know, the same time as they were coming out in theaters.
Yeah.
Or, okay, this kid's show is popular, or this cartoon's popular. Get this game out there now. Capitalize on that popularity.
Yeah.
I don't care. You got 2 months, make a game. And, you know, now, you know, we see these big licensed games getting couple year development times, and, you know, sometimes, and obviously churning out better games as a result. Licensed games have become, you know, they're not getting shot out left and right like they used to. You know, you don't see, not every Hollywood blockbuster, you know, especially summer blockbuster, not every one has a game that comes out. Cell phone game, sure, because they can just shit those out in, you know, cell phone game quality. They don't care because people are dumb and they'll spend stupid. I'm not getting but, you know, pretty much you don't see every PS4 and Xbox One. They're not littered with licensed games like PS2 and PS1 were. A little bit of PS3. That's when the era stopped.
That's when it started to fall off. Yeah,
it kind of, you know. And I gotta say, like, I I do like it. But because
For me, my only concern about the trade-off, right, is that like
Yeah.
we had a drop off, like because I was going to sort of mention this, but I think this is a good time as any. Just the other day, I don't know if I was talking to you, Brandon, or maybe it was Moose, but we were looking at like last gen's games, right? And like last gen, that wasn't necessarily always games that like were attuned to my personal taste, but they were just spitting out new IPs like crazy.
I
right?
think we were having this conversation. Yeah.
Yeah. And I worry that like because these like studios that were making games like, you know, Rocksteady, I mean they made the Batman game, so that's a licensed game. But like Crystal Dynamics brought back Tomb Raider, they brought back Deus Ex, they brought back all these things, or they like made new franchises like Mass Effect.
Yeah.
We don't have things like that anymore because a lot of those teams are being taken up making the Avengers game or
I agree
all these
with
other
that.
things.
I agree with that. That is a good like concern too, and I was going to get to that too. Like I am concerned about taking these development studios that are known for just making great games and making original IPs and sticking them to these franchises. It's fine if in the case of Insomniac, if they make one Spider-Man game and say I'm out, or make a Spider-Man game and then come back to it 4 years later and say after they made maybe one or two more games, say, well, we want to make another one, you know. But if they're stuck in that, like kind of like DICE is, I guess, or you know, I can't think of another one off the top of my head, but I'm sure there's plenty of good development studios that are stuck in these contract deals that they can't get out of, and that's a shame. You know, I'm sure there's plenty of talented people out there that, you know, have a lot of great ideas that they, you know, they could be using in more original IPs instead of, you know, something that only X amount of people are going to play. Because if you're going to release a Dragon Ball Z game, sure, it's going to sell a lot because a lot of people like Dragon Ball Z, but only Dragon Ball Z fans are really going to be playing that game for the most part. You know, so like, sure, you could come up with great original gameplay ideas, but they might get lost because of the IP itself. Or not the IP, but because of the franchise, or, you know, the license. The license might, you know, it might hinder. You could come up with some great gameplay ideas, but only so many people are going to care about Spider-Man or... Watch, like, Way Forward, you know, they used to do a lot. I think they do still now.
They did like the Mummy Demastered last year, I think.
Right, Mummy Demastered. That's a thing. Like that game, I heard was great. And they did a lot of cool stuff with it. But like, who the hell gives a shit about the Mummy?
Yeah, especially when it's a movie that people didn't like, and the game's like the good part of it. You know, like that's always a weird situation. X-Men Origins Wolverine is always the example I think of, where I'm like,
that's a good one, because that game was actually really fucking good.
But so I mean, it's just sort of licensed games, because like you mentioned, like they died for a good 10 years, and they came back in a way that I think is a crazy, right? Because the mobile thing is that the mobile games were just cheaper to make, right? Like you just took less time, you could put them out easier. There's more people that had a phone in their pocket. That's how you make money. And so the fact that sort of the different answer is, hey, actually, let's put, like, if you play Spider-Man, if you look at Spider-Man, that game bleeds money. They invested a lot of cash into that game. They're making it back because that game's selling super well. But like, I think it's just interesting that if you would ask me to predict at the start of this generation the arc for licensed games, this is not where I would have predicted. And now that we're sort of in it, I think it was nice to have a conversation about where it might be going, you know. And the trade-offs.
I mean, I wish it was not as overflowed as back in the day with, you know, there's just tons of licensed games. But I wish there was, you know, the steady trickle of once in a while you'll get a good... For some reason, Rare is working on a licensed game, i.e. GoldenEye. And you get a hit. Like, holy shit. Like, this game is incredible. People love it because... a renowned studio decided to take on a licensed game. Instead of now, it's like all these actual renowned studios aren't deciding to take on licensed games. Their publishers are being like, you're going to make this game. We got this deal. We got to do it. Right? Like,
yeah, I think that's what it's going to come down to, as Brandon just pointed out. It's like whether or not the studio actually wanted to do it, and whether or not the studio actually had the freedom to take as much time as they wanted to. with that game because Rare had a lot of time to do it. Same for like Insomniac, they chose to do it and they want to do it. And if Rocksteady is actually doing it with Superman, they wanted to do a Superman game and they've had plenty of years to do the Superman game. So
if the studios want to, that's great.
So if this is something that Avalanche wanted to do, if this is something that they were super excited for, I hope they were, because that might indicate that this might be a quality game somehow.
I mean, and maybe I mean, like last gen, Rocksteady, before the Batman games happened, was like a relatively unknown studio. They were pretty untested. They had done some licensed games beforehand.
Yeah.
So like if Avalanche, is this gen's Rocksteady, and they come out and they're like, "Yo, we made a banger. Check this out." Like, I'll be the happiest guy in the world for him, because it means that this is a studio that people thought dissolved 2 years ago, and they came back and now they're making this big game. So I mean, hopefully it goes well for him. But just along the way, it'll be interesting to see the larger trends of this at play, right? Like, because I think that there's a point where it might tip over, and there might be too many, all trying to vie for your attention, especially when the budgets get bigger and bigger, like they have been this gen, and you're getting fewer and fewer big releases from the big third-party publishers every year. But there it is, boys. Continuing on the leaky train, I got a DM from Moozamill, 2:30 a.m. in the morning. Should have been sleeping.
Drip.
But it was saying, Japanese Wall Street Journal, Nintendo is aiming to release a revision for the Switch as soon as summer 2019. Now,
Not so soon.
that's the weird thing, right? Let's have a conversation about this, because when I had heard it, my reaction was, that's so soon. But I went back. Moose did this, and he said, mention this on the podcast. That was the one thing he requested of me. He did the time frames for every handheld revision of a Nintendo system, because I think the problem here is that the Switch is both a handheld and a console, and depending on how you view it, sort of determines how you feel about this. But the longest there was any gap between a game and its first revision was the Game Boy Advance to the Game Boy Advance SP, which was 23 months. If this comes out in summer 2019, as early as it would, that would be at least 27 months.
Ugh.
So it would actually be the biggest gap between a release and a revision. But like Noah said, I feel like the reaction I've seen online is, that's way too soon. So how do you think those two things compete, right? Because as Nintendo said, they view this as a handheld and a console. They're doing what the traditional handheld thing. How do you think people will react to that?
Well, that's the thing. How are they actually going to revision it? They're going to make the screen bigger?
Yeah.
Because if that's the case, that means they have to make the Joy-Cons bigger.
Yeah.
Which I think would be an improvement, personally. But then it's going to be less portable, and you're going to need a new dock. Well, you're going to get a new dock, but
Yeah.
I don't know. It's very weird. Like, I feel like it can go wrong, but also can improve a lot, too.
That's what I was about to ask about. Ask Noah. Like, what does he define as being revision or revised? Because that's what a lot of people are just assuming. Like, when people say this system is going to be revised, I'm thinking that they're assuming like the most extreme examples, like the new 3DS revision type shit. It's like, oh, maybe it'll become more powerful. Maybe it'll have more buttons or some shit like that.
Yeah.
Not just like, oh, it's just going to be like bare battery life or some shit.
Yeah, like, I'm going by the logic of the handhelds, because, again, like, they consider the console. Because, like, when it comes to console revisions, you have, like, the PS4 and the PS4 Pro. Like, it's just a much more powerful console. Are they going to do that?
Not necessarily, because there's the NES top loader. There's, for example, the PS1 to the PS1.
They have like
some
the slim
where they go
versions,
smaller,
right?
but I don't think that would be a good idea in this case to go smaller.
They're generally not presented as having new feature sets. They're generally presented as a different form factor, which is, I mean, what Nintendo does with handhelds, like with the 3DS XL and the DS Lite and the SP, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, I think that you touched on this, Noah. I think the Joy-Con is the weirdest part of all of it, because like, if you bought a different form factor Game Boy SP, there wasn't, you just played on the thing. You just played on the Game Boy, right? There was no other aspects at play where like I have 4 Joy-Con right now. If I get the Switch XL or whatever, will those just not work? Like that seems like a problem, right? Especially when the whole idea is to share, have multiple people holding different Joy-Cons at the same time.
Yeah, that as well. It's like, and you can't like just not like have it just so like the console itself has changed. Like the Joy-Cons have to change with it, otherwise it's gonna like. When it comes to size, at least, it would have to like it would look very bad if it was just suddenly the screen is bigger but the Joy-Cons are like smaller on it. It's just like
if it's just like sticking out the top, like it's not flush with
it's like it wouldn't. I don't think they would go that direction at all. So like they're obviously gonna have to change the whole thing, not just the screen.
So I mean, I guess because I've seen sort of 2 different camps on this, and they're pretty far apart. There's the people that are like, oh, it might just be better battery and the screen. Like the problem is if you look in the inside of the Switch, it's already like 60% battery in there. That's like what most of it is, and we haven't had a huge breakthrough in battery technology since it's come out. But people are saying, well, maybe they'll change the screen, might slightly update the chip to be more power effective, so it'll give you a longer battery life, and that's going to be it. And then there are some people that are out there being like, they're going to do a clamshell design, it's dual screens again, baby, we're living in a chaos land. And you're like, you people are nuts. So maybe I'm giving away how I view this, but like, sort of, if it is just battery life, right, do you think that wouldn't
make it worth it though?
Yeah. That's sort of where I'm at.
To make a whole new console. Unless they like completely not sell the older Switches anymore and they just like, okay, these are the new production Switches.
Lines. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a new production line. It's like the old ones are the old ones. It's like they don't exist anymore. Now if you get a Switch, it's just improved. Same price or whatever.
Yeah.
Like that would be okay, I guess. But
yeah, it would be interesting because like you said, it would just be that would be straight up like just here's an upgraded. We've upgraded the system. Mm-hmm. Here's the question though: is there anything on the Switch that you would want as an improvement?
Yes, change the location of the right joystick.
You
Don't
want
have it in the fucking middle. Either put it on the top, or put it on the bottom. Do not keep it in the middle. It's the most fucking uncomfortable spot for it.
Oh, like put it on the bottom?
Like
or the
down?
bottom or the top. Either or.
I would like it at the bottom. That would be...
I would too. I don't like when joysticks are next to each other or in the same spot. I like it when there's one, like the Pro Controller or the Xbox controller. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Also, maybe... the shoulder buttons, I don't know. Like, I don't know how they would improve the design-wise because the Joy-Con's so small.
Yeah. That's the weird thing, right? Is that I'm a guy who I traditionally did not buy revisions of handhelds. I take that back. I bought the Game Boy SP, right? And I bought the 3DS XL in like 2015. Right, so pretty late into the life of both of those. I made it through the entire DS life cycle with that ugly, big, blue... obelisk-looking original DS, the fat one. The 3 DS Lites, the original DS to the DS Lites were the biggest improvements of any system. I just never did it. I was so stupid. But
I thought Game Boy Advance to Game Boy Advance SP was the biggest improvement.
Also huge. Yeah, I mean that's the thing.
Backlit fucking screen, boy. That's the biggest.
It's a huge world.
It's
a huge
world. I got the XL 3DSs because I was like, God bless for a bigger handheld console. Like finally, I don't have to fucking crunch my fingers to play a system.
I got the new 3DS because my old one broke. That's about it.
That's fair. But like that's the thing though, is that like all of those revisions like had a clear actionable difference, right? Mm-hmm. Like if you did one and the other, they have a history where you can look at these side by side and tell they are not the same product, right? They have a different form factor, everything else. I don't know if that continues with the Switch.
I don't really know what they could do. I feel like they could surprise us, but for me personally...
Street Pass is back, baby.
Maybe. Well, for me
they wouldn't need a whole console just for Street Pass.
No, I'm joking. That was just a joke.
I mean, I guess that gets to where I'm going, kind of, because I don't really care about the hardware that much.
Uh-huh.
I want to see some UI upgrades. You don't even need a new console for that.
Yeah, that's just an update.
I just want UI updates. I just want
give me a song.
Music on the eShop.
Give me a song.
Give me
I want themes.
Give me a better organized eShop. Give me themes on the main screen with like you did with 3DS. Like I'll buy them. There's a market there. I'll pay for that. You know, give me that, and I'll be a happy guy.
Yeah.
You don't need a new device.
And that's the weirdest thing. Is it like when I was getting ready for the podcast, I was like, well, you got to have some in there to help, right? Some ideas. What do you want? And it's like, I sort of like drew a bunch of blanks. Like I was like, battery life would be nice, but it's not $300 worth. Like,
yeah. Other than that, I don't have any problems. I guess like the Joy-Cons would be bigger, but then we run into that same problem where what do you do with your old ones?
Yeah, and they presented it, and sort of the article presented it as Nintendo's approach to sort of keeping momentum going, right?
Sure.
And so I imagine that might mean they're just looking at new people who maybe were waiting. Maybe they found a cheaper version. Maybe they'll do they'll go nuts and they're like, here's just a version that doesn't come with a dock. It's just only portable. I don't know.
They have to be careful because like they could do like just a general hardware upgrade where it's like more powerful. But then they have to be careful because if they start implementing, like the whole reason they would do that was so they can get more games, like third-party games that require a stronger system, even though they got Doom running and everything. But if they did that, then that would like alienate all the other customers that bought the old Switch. Yeah. So
you would have to be careful. It would have to be like an Xbox One X situation, right? Where like it has to be able to run on the base, but then run better on the upgrade. But like if the problem was we can't get it to run on the base, period, then it doesn't give you much good,
Like Xenoblade Chronicles for the 3DS.
Yeah. I think exclusives would be a bad call for a thing like that. Where it's just like only on new Switch. Like doing that 2 years into your console's lifespan is a rough ask. Like new 3DS was 2016. It was 5 years in.
Yeah.
That's more. I feel like that's more reasonable.
Yeah.
So I mean, So if we're following the patterns, it would be just purely a form factor difference, but I guess we'll just have to see. I wanted to ask about this because now basically with every console doing revisions, because we now have 3D, we now have PS4 Pro, we now have Xbox One X, we have people upgrading their phones every year. Do you think it needs to be as different as it used to? Do you think that because people now are more used to the idea of upgrading incrementally, the market won't be as upset if it is just like a better battery life, better screen situation?
It wouldn't be.
No, I feel like, especially with Nintendo, that's like an easier target for people to be angry at. The whole fucking thing with the online service. Oh, we gotta pay for your online multiplayer now? What shit is this? Meanwhile, they're paying fucking $60 a fucking year for Xbox and PlayStation.
Well, they're not, because that's the thing. Is the people that I think are complaining the most are like, I'm a Nintendo fanboy, and I'm sorry if you're a Nintendo fanboy. I don't want to alienate people or make people mad. But I feel like the people that are complaining are like hardcore Nintendo fanboys, or girls, or whoever you want.
It's true.
Hardcore Nintendo fans are a fickle bunch.
They can be 100%.
They can be, and I'm one of them. But I don't know. I think of myself as more relaxed, I guess.
Yeah, but I'm not targeting like people that aren't fans of Nintendo. I'm talking about general in people like.
Well, I don't think in general. I think most of the complaints were just coming from Nintendo fans.
People that would probably end up buying
still
the
going to come
anyways.
if they did something like that again with Nintendo. They have to be careful because those fans will come back to complain.
Exactly,
it is very funny.
Exactly, exactly that with like Xbox and PlayStation fans who are probably a slightly more casual, because Nintendo's a little bit more hardcore, I think, at least in my eyes, in terms of their fanboys, right? And like Xbox and PS4 are the people who do upgrade their phone necessarily like every year, because why not, right? So they're used to that, like Will said. So when Xbox and PlayStation if they do it, it's not a big deal. But I think for a hardcore Nintendo fan, you're right. They're going to be a lot more picky, and if Nintendo does it, you're not going to hear the end of it. At least it's not going to seem like you're going to hear the end of it.
I think part of it has to do with the history of how the companies have done, where like PlayStation, the worst PlayStation has ever done is like still 80 million units sold, right? Like the PS3 ended up like almost, very close third, right? But like very close. Where like Nintendo, like, you know, there is feast and famine. Right, there are days where you're at the Wii and the DS days, and you're like, baby, everybody's wanting to have a conversation with us. And then the Wii U hits, and it's like, oh boy, well, here we are. Will Nintendo go mobile? I don't know.
And the GameCube, too, was the thing. Where, like, you know, Nintendo 64, pretty big, pretty decent. Well, Super Nintendo, huge.
Yeah.
Nintendo 64 is still pretty big. Then GameCube, like, when I was,
in,
amazing,
but didn't do
middle
well.
school / like early high school. I'm showing my age right here, I know. You know, people were smashing on GameCube all the time. Like, oh, you play that fucking dumb baby shit? Play
it's got a
PlayStation
handle.
2. Get PlayStation 2 or get fucked. And I don't know. Probably a direct quote if I had to guess.
I mean, back to the subject at hand. Like, I think it's like if they do a revised thing, and if they do some sort of like significant upgrade, or some significant boost to the system, I don't think it would be much of an outrage if it just means that they're just going to sell the original system for less.
That is my question. Well, here's the question. Do you think that... Because, I mean, the one thing they did do during the 3DS cycle is introduce the 2DS, which was designed to be just a cheaper... is missing the main gimmick of the original, which was crazy. We thought at the time, I was like, the 2DS is crazy. Like, because, you know, it's just saying the 3D thing on the 3DS is optional.
Failure.
Yeah. Well, not even that's failure. It's just that you don't need it necessarily. And it's like, I mean, you know, for most Switch
main
games.
Gimmick too, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like for Switch games, like there's no games that require it to be on the TV. There are some games that require it to be on portable. Like, could they just do a straight up portable version without a dock and charge $200?
Oh, that's actually a very high possibility. I didn't think of that.
If they do that, they need to improve the battery life.
Yes, that would be my thought as well. Right, like those are the two things you have to do. Like they come hand in hand, basically.
Just to clarify one thing, because I mostly play on the TV. How long does a fucking Switch last?
Like 3 to 6 hours, depending on the game.
Yeah, depending on the game and how.
Like Breath of the Wild, you're doing 3, but if you're doing like Runbow, probably 6.
Because I not mostly play my 3DS for like with full 3D on, and that lasted about like 3 hours.
Yeah, it's about similar sort of life to the 3DS, but
yeah, I play my Switch normally only on the TV, so I don't really feel the stress of the battery life, but I did. You know, there's a couple times where I brought it places, and I'm like, oh boy, this thing does not last that long.
Yeah, I'm a mixed bag. Like, depends on the game. Like, for things like Octopath Traveler, I like playing in bed, like, on handheld mode, just chilling. But, like, for games like Monster Hunter or Splatoon, like, I like to have it docked on TV and play on the controller.
Yeah. There are madmen like Muzamil who only play docked. I mean, only play handheld. And it blows my mind. Because we'll, like, be playing, and he'll just stop, and you're like, why? It's like, my battery's dying. And you're like, your TV's right there. You're, like, inches away from it.
All right.
But how the fuck does he play Splatoon with fucking motion controls in handheld mode?
He smashes his entire room to pieces.
He's a madman. But I mean, you know, for a person that is, you know, I think there was a use case for people that would only want to sort of do this handheld, so maybe that'll be it.
Yeah, if it was cheaper, I think it would sell pretty good.
But I mean, we'll have to find out. But maybe, I mean, the weird thing is I went back to look at like the turnaround from when they announced the revision to it coming out. It's way short. It's like a month before it comes out. So we might have to wait a little bit to get some more details, but I enjoyed that conversation because I think talking about the Switch and sort of, we oftentimes, I think, take for granted what the Switch is at this point, but Nintendo's, I think, having to rethink a lot of their sort of ways that they've approached both console and handhelds, because this is obviously a fusion, and I'm excited to see what their answers are. But that is the news for this week. We tried a little bit of a different thing you may have noticed, just deeper dive on 2 stories. So thank you, boys, for being there to engage on those topics in unique and interesting ways.
That's what we're here for.
Yeah. But this week, it's time for always talked about. People on the street are going up to each other, just having conversations about the list.
The list.
The list.
Whoa. That was powerful. So last week, Brandon, in memory of Telltale, there was some more stuff about Telltale, but by the way, everyone's been let go from Telltale. Very sad. But Brandon brought The Walking Dead Season 1 in remembrance, made it to 18 on the list. The power couple of Valkyria Chronicles Remastered and Fire Emblem Awakening, someone's come in the middle, Trouble in Paradise, is Walking Dead Season 1. This week, it's Will's turn. And I was thinking about video games, and I was thinking about just, we have a lot of different games on here, a lot of different types of games, but a lot of them are relatively recent. They were games that came out in our lifetimes. I want to have a conversation about a game that's obviously extremely important, but it has a different sensibility than a lot of these games. I'm talking about Miss Pac-Man.
Shit.
Yeah. Miss Pac-Man. If you don't know what Miss Pac-Man is, how did you make it this far in the podcast to know what we were talking about? But for the one of you who may not know, Miss Pac-Man is the follow-up to Pac-Man, a game that inspired a whole mania across this fair United States of America. It is an improvement in some pretty big ways over the original Pac-Man, but it has that same core idea. You start in the maze. You are Miss Pac-Man. There are 4 ghosts. Inky, Pinky, Clyde, and the other one.
What's this?
Blinky?
Blinky, that's the one.
Blinky
sounds about right, yeah.
And there are dots all across the map. There are power pellets in the 4 corners, and you have to collect all the dots. The power pellets make you invincible. You can eat the ghosts for more points while you are invincible.
So how was it an improvement from the original?
The AI was vastly improved. It's much harder. The ghosts will now sort of do a little bit of prediction of where you're going, like not super complex, but the ghosts were more randomized in the original Pac-Man. Now, like Pinky is designed to cut you off. That's what she does. What's his name? The red one just chases you down. The blue one stays near intersections, and Clyde is the random one. The orange one just goes wherever. He's an agent of chaos. They added in more maps, so instead of it just being the one map over and over, there's 6 or 7 now. They added like little cutscenes in the middle of like, here's how Mr. and Mrs. Pac-Man met and all that other stuff, right?
Yeah.
Which is cute. And they changed up the scoring system a little bit. With specifically the stuff that appears in the middle and with the way the power pellets work.
Yeah.
But all that being said, I was thinking about Miss Pac-Man, and it's one of those games that I thought about, and I was like, man, there were not enemies in video games like the ghosts at the time that Miss Pac-Man came out. They are still unique and cool and iconic in a way, right? Like when you think of Pac-Man, they are the second thing you think of after you think of that little red dot. I mean yellow, whatever. Excuse me. Pac-Man's not red. That's stupid.
Wow,
but
fake Pac-Man.
Yeah. Well, words are hard there. But fake Pac-Man fan.
Fake Pac-Man.
Yeah, it's true. But just the fact that each of them like has their own unique characteristics, that they all act in different ways, that the dynamic of the pellets and of the power pellets, right, of being helpless until you get those in the moment of power, the strategy of, do I just eat it now and try to get as many dots as I can to move on? Do I wait for all of them to get close to try to go for the max points? Because if you eat them, they actually come back faster, because then if you just let them all run free, because when they get eaten, they go back to the center and then they become normal again. And so I think that Miss Pac-Man is obviously like huge, important, all that other stuff, but also I think it like still plays well. The way it escalates with the speed increasing is still fun. And I just wanted to like think about it, because a lot of times I think when we talk about big important video games, Pac-Man and Mrs. Pac-Man in particular, which I think is a much better game, oftentimes go forgotten, because we just assume that they are Pac-Man. Of course they're there. So when it comes to where I want to put it on the list, I mean, this is a weird one. This is a weird one is the answer.
This is a weird one, yeah.
And that's partially why I wanted to do it. Brandon, can you give me a number? Yeah. Because I want to see where you're at, because I'm fully lost, sort of, to be honest.
Aw, shit.
Go on, Mr. Legacy Man.
Here comes Miss Pac-Man.
Let's take a look here, because Miss Pac-Man, like you said, Miss Pac-Man's an icon.
Icon.
You know,
Feminist icon. Miss Pac-Man.
The first lady of video games.
She is. Sorry, Samus.
She is.
When is she?
Well,
when is Miss Pac-Man going to be an Echo in Smash?
That's a good question.
Come on, she has different things appear in her thing than Pac-Man does in the center of the map, so her B move could be different.
So yeah, like you said, like I like Miss Pac-Man's way better than Pac-Man.
Yeah.
By far.
Yes.
You know, it improved that game in every way. So, but Pac-Man's not on the list, so we can't just
compare it to that. Of course.
Yeah, that's the thing.
it
was Pac-Man that became the giant. Miss Pac-Man was just an improvement on it. So the kind of
but
the
Miss
Legacy
Pac-Man
stuff,
is a better game.
It is the better.
And
game.
Miss Pac-Man became a pretty big giant herself.
Yeah.
Well, that's because the giant
there is
was
a near
already
equal number of
there,
cabinets
though.
out there.
I mean, it
There's an
would have
equal
been
number
even
of
better
cabinets
if Pac-Man didn't exist and Miss Pac-Man was like the.
I feel like more often than not, if you're gonna see a newer like arcade cabinet that like has classic games, it's probably gonna have Miss Pac-Man before Pac.
In my life, I think that's true. I think that like being born after the advent of arcades, like the ones that I still see around, I feel like I see like the Miss Pac-Man Galaga dual cabinet everywhere.
Yep, they have that at the
of
pizza
course.
place down the street from my house.
Because
and, Miss
why would
Pac-Man
you
and
have the
Galaga.
original if the sequel was like the best improvement in every single shape and form?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So where do we
It's
want to
tough.
put it though?
So, boy. Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna throw out a number.
I'm
Let's just
looking at. Okay, go ahead.
No, I want to hear what you got to say.
I was thinking around 30.
Around 30, so right below Stardew Valley, but above Cave Story.
30 for a game like Miss Pac-Man.
Do you think it should be higher, Saf?
I mean, it's still a really fun game.
It's still a really fun game.
This is still a really fun game. That is true.
Still
I mean,
got
it
some
is,
catchy
but
beats.
it's
still,
also
it's something
extremely
that gets-
simple.
I mean, you can put the game out today and people will still have some sort of joy out of it.
Yeah, but then they'll drop it after like a half hour, an hour.
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of the nature of the style of game it is.
Yeah, I mean, you can pretty much say that for most arcade games, but
Yeah. I don't know. I was thinking around like 25, maybe a little bit higher, a little bit lower.
This is a very interesting game to rank.
Pac-Man, the first horror game. Think about it. Think about it in your brain.
Okay.
First horror
Oh,
game.
why do you think it's number 30?
Run away from spooky, scary ghosts. We're in October,
We're in
so
October.
you know,
That's-
makes sense.
So why do you think
Oh,
it should
boy.
be number 30?
I don't think it should go much higher than that, honestly. Like that's
Yeah, but why though?
because it's a great idea. It isn't what started it, but it was definitely an improvement on like the original that made the big boom in arcade games. But like it's still like as fun as it is, it gets, like I said, it's like very repetitive, and
So
you
does it have any
probably will
lasting
stop
appeal?
playing it after like a couple of like a good session. You play it, you get far, and it's like, okay, I have my fill. And like, I mean, yes, you can go back to it whenever, but you always will have that. You would just only play for like a good half hour or something. It's just a simple thing to play. You never like yours, like, I really want to play Miss Pac-Man. You know what I mean?
Well, maybe not you, not me.
I mean,
But-
my uncle got an Xbox 360 so he could download Miss Pac-Man.
Yeah, and also
That is
you
what
kinda
that was his
saying.
system seller, which is I always blew my mind. But
This isn't Miss Pac-Man's Maze Adventure, though.
So how would you compare it to something like Tetris then, for example? Because you can pretty much see almost the exact same argument for Tetris.
oh, Tetris,
no,
Tetris
because
is so
with
high.
With Tetris, you have a lot more flexibility on how to go with different bouts of strategies. Like you're the one that's building the blocks, you're the one that's making the lines.
Before we sit here and talk about how good Tetris
Yeah, I
is,
know. That's
If
going to
you're wrong,
be
it
an
is.
hour and a half of
It's
will
not-
because I love Tetris.
Yeah, I love Tetris too. We're not going to talk.
Yeah.
We're not going to talk about that right now because I could talk about it all day, and it's not on the list. I
But Miss
think
Pac-Man.
we need to.
Let's get a
This
vibe
is-
for where everyone is right now. We should do that first so we can know what we're working
Okay.
with.
I agree. So Noah's in the 30 area. Will, you're in the 25 area.
Yeah.
Me, I think I'm in that same area, somewhere in the 20s, the mid 20s.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tough one because I feel like I'm gonna be disappointed. Pretty much anywhere I put this, I feel like I'm gonna be disappointed in myself.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'll be disappointed if I put it too high,
Mm-hmm.
but also I'll be just disappointed if I put it too low. And like putting it right in the middle, I feel like part of me is gonna think maybe it's too low or maybe it's too high. I don't know. It's tough.
Yeah. It's this is a weird one because it is a weird. I mean, in comparison to the rest of the type of the games, that's why I wanted to add it because I thought like this is we have Super Mario Brothers
yeah.
and Super Mario Brothers is like the closest
It's a
comparison.
good pick.
But so you're in Saf. Where are you at?
Somewhere around the 20s. Somewhere around the 20s.
Somewhere around like the 50s or so.
Somewhere in the top 50, I would have to say.
Somewhere in the top 52, I think. Which, by the way, you can see the whole list in the paste bin in the description.
Somewhere
Okay,
in the
so
20s.
let's say I would put it above Fighters. I would put it at 24.
24.
Above Fighters, but below the Wonderful 101.
I mean, yeah. I mean, if you look at like the things it does right versus the things it does wrong, it on paper it
Mm-hmm.
kind of is.
I'd be willing to put it above Wonderful 101 only because it has better controls.
I would say that is fair. I would be willing to put it above Wonderful 101 if we have a coalition.
Yeah, I can put
Seth?
it above Wonderful 101 as well. Because I'm going
I
to
think I would put it below Animal Crossing because Animal Crossing has 25 NES games in it, and they're all pretty good.
Right. Animal Crossing doesn't have Pac-Man.
It's not Pac-Man.
But it has Mario Bros. And it has Zelda, and it has Balloon Fight, and etc.
Wait, you can play an entire game of fucking Mario Bros. And Zelda and Animal Crossing?
Did you not know that? The original Animal Crossing on GameCube, there's like 25 NES games that you can get.
I only played the DS version.
Yeah.
Oh, baby, you missed out. It's a treat.
Wait, why is Mario Bros. Above Animal Crossing if Animal Crossing has all...
This ain't right. Move it down. Re-rank episode right now.
Yeah, but I just put it above Wonderful 101. I'm okay with that.
Okay. All right. So, sorry, Noah. I think we have a 3-1. So that at 23, below Animal Crossing, but above the Wonderful 101, we have... Oh, shit. Is Miss Pac-Man. Is it Miss MRS?
Because it is a really good game in its own right.
It's Miss Pac-Man. She's a single lady.
Single lady.
She's-
At the beginning of the
She's
game.
not tied down.
But they end up getting married, but they have the same last name. I wonder if they're from like Alabama.
Okay.
I'm from the South, I can say it. Hello, everyone. All right, there we go. Everything else above it: 21, Phoenix Wright, Ace Attorney; 22, Animal Crossing; 23, Miss Pac-Man; 24, Wonderful 101; 25, Dragon Ball Fighter. That is the Game Club. That is not the Game Club. That is the list.
Jeez.
That is the
Goddamn.
Jump Up Supercast.
So close to the edge. Just had the fucking
Close.
You are not allowed to host that.
Time to restart the entire recording. That is the Jump Up Supercast for this week. Well, thank you all for listening. I mentioned the Game Club because boy, oh boy, do we have a Game Club episode coming out later this week. What game is it, Brandon?
It is Castlevania Bloodlines
Oh, baby.
for the Sega
Genesis.
The Genesis.
My
Sega!
favorite Terminator film. That's not true. But look forward to that. We'll have our good friend Ills along the way. He has notes. People have been making notes for the Game Club. So professional. Please look forward to
Game
it.
Club it's a classy show now. I mean, it always has been, but it's classier than ever.
Class, not ass. The way that we describe the Game Club. But before I finish doing plugs, Saf, can you do us the honor of having the final phrase after I finish plugging where you can find us on the internet?
Oh, yes.
Speaking of where you can find us on the internet, we have a Twitter, twitter.com/jumpupsupercast. Sound like Jeff Goldblum there. And we also have a Twitch channel where we sometimes stream at twitch.tv/jumpupsupercast. As always, we have the podcast every Monday, the Game Club every Thursday on your podcast feeds of choice. If you made it this far and you weren't already subscribed, do it dummy. I don't mean that. You're a beautiful soul. I want to thank, of course, Brandon, Noah, and Saf for being here on the game front. I almost did it again. Jump Up Supercast.
This guy really wants to host the game club.
Watch out, I'm gunning for you. I want to thank you all for joining me. And the final phrase goes to my dear friend, Saphir.
So, for the longest time, I have been greatly mistaken. I had no idea that this Animal Crossing game had this one special feature of having to play, the ability to play a lot of NES games, which would mean that next time we would really need to consider putting Animal Crossing above Super Mario Bros. In our next re-ranking list. Let's do this!